Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I'm your host, James Anderson, and I got my good buddy, Rob DiPietro, with me today. And we're going to have a fun show. We're going to talk specifically about players. We're each going to have a few players we think are going in the top 200, players that are going in the top 200 that we think are bad picks. And then we've also got a handful of players that are going in the final 5 rounds or getting undrafted in draft and holds that we think are great picks. So we're going to be talking specific players, but I think we'll get into some strategy stuff while we're talking about those players. But Rob, first, how are you doing, man? How many drafts have you done? How many drafts are you currently in?
Oh boy, I'm doing wonderful, James. As always, it's an honor to be on the RotoWire pod and with you, good friend of mine. Draft season is fully kicking in. I got off to a slower start than usual. In October, November, and December, I kind of slammed on the gas a little bit and find myself in position sometimes I don't like to be in. 3 current drafts right now. I got one DC that's in round 36. Another DC that's in round 18, and I am in the middle of round 15 of the first NFBC online championship of the season. So how to get my brain into 12-team fab mode. And let me tell you, James, it was, I needed a good day on finding that delineation of when everyone becomes equal in the draft. And, trying to, it's such a difference in DC. There's all these great middle infielders that you could pick late. And then in OCs, you're like, this guy's going to be off my team relatively soon. And you just got to get into that whole brain. So it's been fun, challenging, but I'm happy to be in the first one of the year.
Yeah, very opposite approaches there with the DC versus the OC. So impressive that you're multitasking those right now. I've just done, I'm in the middle. Well, I'm towards the end of my 3rd DC of the season. So I've done even fewer than you, but I've done enough prep to have lots of players I wanted to bring up for our players that we think are great values late. I've got an endless amount of those guys. I thought it was more challenging to come up with players going in the top 200 that I thought were bad picks, just because I think it's sharp drafting season. There's plenty of guys going in the top 200 where I'm probably not going to take that player, but picking guys where I'm going to actually make arguments for why they're going a few rounds too early, I found that to be much more challenging than coming up with the guys that I love late.
100%. And, I have some clear guys I just dislike, and then other guys stems from just the flow of the draft, and then when I find the pockets that I find are comparable and in later spots, certain guys just become this profile is heavily available later, and that becomes I think he's in the wrong spot, and it may not be even the player itself, it's just the way the ADP unfolds.
Yeah, it's kind of I'm almost kind of using a Babs sort of logic for sort of why I think some of these early picks are bad. Exactly like you said, it's sort of more about the position and the stats I think I'm getting, and the players at that same position that might give similar stats that are just going later for whatever reason. That often just kind of becomes a justification for I'm not going to take this guy here. Why would I take this guy here when I can get this guy, a few rounds later? So Rob, why don't you start it off, dude? Why don't you throw
Oh boy.
In the top 200 that you think is a bad pick. And obviously, I'm sure we've got friends listening and very smart players listening who have probably drafted some of the players we're about to crap all over, but go ahead, Rob.
So the first guy I'm going to mention is Trevor Megill, pick 102 right now in the last 15 DCs. And there's no doubting that he's a very skilled reliever. And this is not a anti-Trevor Megill stance, but 51 saves over the last 2 seasons. But the Brewers are known to move away from these kind of situations and players. They did it with Hader and Devin Williams, getting something for a player maybe at its peak, pre-free agency. So got a couple of RBS. So he's been heavily involved per the Milwaukee beat writers in trade talks from teams that I think you see them developing a super penish. You hear the Yankees, the Mets, and while I think he can get traded and still be a closer option, I think that cloud of that's hanging over is just too much. There's a lot of smoke there. He's also never thrown more than 47 innings in a season. We know the injury history is there. And with that comes a very capable closer in Abner Uribe, who got more leverage as the season went on. And then I think the tipping point for me as I dug into the season, and I was like, man, Uribe, going to your statement about the drafting public being super sharp, like, man, Uribe's got a very high ADP. And then when I dug into some of the end of season usage, I know Megill came back from an injury, but the playoff usage was pretty stark to me, where like Megill was one of their lowest leverage relievers, with Uribe being high leverage, getting the lone team save. And then when I broke it down, I went to each game box score, and, you know, Gill was used as an opener in the game that Uribe saved. He also worked versus the Cubs in the 5th inning of a 6-0 loss. And then versus the Dodgers, he worked the 8th inning in game 1, and Uribe took over the 9th. And then in game 2, kind of Uribe worked the 6th and 7th, but he faced a really heavy, strong pocket of righties. And Megill never really got a chance to operate in high leverage. So I don't know if that's too big of a rabbit hole, but I find like when you really try to see managerial tendencies, and I just see them viewing Abner Uribe as a perfectly capable closer. And if they can get something for Trevor Megill, I think they are going to be highly motivated to do it. So for his ADP, I think is a little too rich for me right now.
Yeah. And I agree with the call. You know, I think the innings thing, I'm glad you mentioned that. Never thrown 50 innings. I don't think you can project him for 50 innings. And yeah, like you said, going just outside the top 100 in recent DCs, Trevor Megill. I will say, like, I agree with you, and I think that the main takeaway for me from like that postseason usage is just that they trust Uribe in the role. But in that game where he was the opener against the Cubs, Megill, that was like the highest leverage part of that game, because every other righty that they threw out there, Michael Busch was homering off in the 1st inning, and Megill was the first righty they were able to start in that series who Busch didn't take yard in the 1st inning. So like that was like they used him just to shut down, to make the Cubs start Busch and then to shut them down in that 1st inning. But I definitely agree with your point that Uribe, you know, I mean, I think I would probably take Uribe over Megill straight up in a DC right now. I think you're getting more innings from Uribe, and I think like you just need the Megill trade or the Megill injury, or maybe even none of the above, and he could still get the saves. Uribe could still get the saves. Whereas Megill, you need, I think, more things to kind of work out for him to be the guy closing games. Even if he gets traded, like he might not be the closer, like you said, and even if he sticks around, he might not be the closer. So
yeah, and in my OC, I actually picked Abner Uribe before Megill was off the board. I picked him in the 12th round. He was my 2nd closer because I was trying to not spend too much capital there. I feel like there's some pockets to grab some good guys to start the season with saves. And then, you know, in OCs, you can really filter through that as the season goes along. In some leagues, it's a lot easier. In some leagues, it isn't. But I just thought like Uribe is the perfect kind of guy to take right now. Because if Megill, you know, does get traded, I would think Uribe shoots up into inside the 100. So I thought Uribe was a perfect online championship fab league kind of guy to, you know, if I don't hit on my 15th round pick, then I can move on from it.
Yeah, I love that pick. I mean, you showed me your board from that OC. It's just so fun to be able to put together teams that are that loaded after doing all
so
these
much
DCs.
fun. So much fun, James. After doing these DCs and focusing so much on, and that's the thing, so much of this part of the season, you know, I'm spending so much time on this lower half of ADP guys who are going to make a marginal input to your team, and then to switch into Fab Brain where, you know, it just, I'm like, all right, now I got to focus more on these, on the good players.
Okay, so speaking of good players, my first nomination is Rafael Devers. going in the 4th round on average in DCs, ADP of like 56 over the last 18 DCs. Rafael Devers going like few picks behind Matt Olson. I would take Matt Olson over him pretty easily, but I'm generally probably not taking a first baseman in the 4th round there. I think, if you want a middling average with 30 homers in San Francisco, I'd rather take Willy Adames 4 rounds later. And I think it's just it's just the worst kind of investment on Devers here, because you're using an early pick on a player at a deep position who doesn't dominate any tough to find category or excel across the board. I'm kind of viewing him as a middling average who's going to be great in power, runs, RBI, but he's not going to be a 40 homer guy. Like, he's not going to carry you in power. There hasn't been a San Francisco Giant to hit 35 homers in a season since Barry Bonds. I would honestly take Freddie Freeman straight up over Devers. I would take Josh Naylor straight up over Devers. And I think it's just a mispriced player based on where he typically would go. Like, a healthy Rafael Devers typically would go like in this range, but I just think people aren't downgrading the move enough and aren't kind of downgrading some slight skills decline enough.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And when we, I did a pod with Dustin McComas early in the season, we talked about steamer projections that were kind of surprising to us. And Dustin is a huge Rafael Devers guy. And, when he saw the projection, he was kind of like, how can they, project him for a 249 average? He's, but prior to last season, it was just consistently 270 and above. And, I guess you just have to, like you said, you have to adjust for that park. Despite a career high barrel, despite an EV90 that's still so strong, and the ability to hit the ball opposite field with power, it does look like he can, come down in homers, and the batting average, as the K percentage keeps rising as well. So I like that call out. I haven't touched on Rafael Devers all season long, and he's always been a guy in the 3rd round that I was interested in, when you looked at the power kind of bat with Austin Riley, and man, how they have fallen in a couple of seasons. Yeah. It's pretty wild,
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, it's like Devers, the hitter, the slugger, like, great player. It's just like building a DC roster. I think it's just not a move for me. I don't think in the 4th round there.
Yeah, right, I like that call.
Who's the next guy you want to shout out?
This one is always easy for me every single season. It might be a little bit of a cop out, but Oneil Cruz going to pick 96. I'm not a fan of the actual person, and I just don't think his skill set is I know it's fantasy friendly because he gets us the home run, stolen base juice, but there's just so many things that are just not admirable traits for him. Like, he had an 18 WRC plus versus lefties. Over the last 2 months of the season, he batted 150 with a 35% K rate. Like, he can't hit spin. He's still proving that. He's got this tall guy syndrome where his bat path is just consistently leading to him hitting the ball hard, but into the ground a lot. He also suffered a huge drop against 4-seamers. Like, he crushed it in 2024, and last year he just couldn't catch up to the ball. It was just awful numbers all the way around. And I've been starting to look at this metric called hard hit launch. I heard Lance Brozdowski bring it up in one of his pods, and it's pretty good. It's just taking your balls that are hard hit over 95 and looking at the launch angle of them. The league average is 14%. He's at 14 degrees. He's at 9.5 degrees. So it just lends to, like, when he does lift it, he has to lift and also be perfect with the launch to get into his power. And the raw power is there, but I don't see the ability to consistently get into it. The pull air is 13%. League average is 16.7. And I actually developed another metric that I added to my leaderboard, and I took the percentage of batted ball events that are both hard hit and are air pulled. And he's like 3% below league average. So even when he does get a chance to pull it in the air, he's not really taking advantage of it. So It was just the batting average drain. The possibility that he completely doesn't play versus lefties is very much there for me, and he's just completely off my radar.
Yeah, I mean, you and I are in too much agreement on Cruz there. I've never rostered him. I don't think I've rostered him in any league ever. I might have, like, honestly, if I did roster him, it might have been when he was a prospect with like the Dodgers way back in the day in like a dynasty league. But he's also, he's never exceeded 75 runs. He's never exceeded 76 RBI. The platoon aspect, like the fact that even if he doesn't sit against lefties, the fact that he's that bad against lefties,
right?
It's
ugly.
It's weird. Yeah. It's weird because he's like, Cruz is probably, like, of the past like 2 years, I would say the player who gets drafted the highest and most frequently by managers that I really respect, but also who I just have zero interest in. So there's kind of like why is like Steve Weimer and Mark Winokur like buying this guy, and like I have just zero interest in him. I think it's just like a projection aspect to the just, you see the bulk steals there with the homers, and it can be a useful roster piece, like especially like if you're putting together just an absolutely dominant DC roster, like I bet like Steve Weimer could draft Oneil Cruz and only use him for half the season and like win an overall by like doing that. But like it's just a weird like the floor with the batting average. I hate it so much.
Yeah. And perfect. I mean, I think you're right. I think it comes with the fact that you plug him into auction calculator or SGP, and what he provides is just so is fantasy friendly from two categories that we often may have trouble to fill. But I don't think 20 home runs is like, that's not moving the needle, and I'll find some stolen bases elsewhere.
Okay, so Oneil Cruz on average going around pick 94 in DCs. We're not interested. The next guy I want to bring up is Noelvi Marte, going at pick 135 on average in the past like 18 DCs. I think I'm not like pound the table confident in this pick, because Marte has definitely flashed. Like he's had month-long stretches where he would certainly pay off this ADP. I don't know if it's like the OF3B thing that's kind of pushing him up, but I think third base is loaded in like the 200 range, so I wouldn't be putting like a round premium on just that OF3B combo for Marte. He's a really bad defender on a team that has several really bad defenders who are probably better than him. So like I think they're just going to play Marte in the outfield. But I think he's going to be bad out there, and his approach at times is just dreadful. So like he could go slumping for a few weeks and just lose playing time because he's not going to be providing any value in the field. And I also think the fact that Roster Resource has him penciled in as the Reds' number 2 hitter and everyday player in Great American is contributing to that ADP sticking in the top 150. I also think it's like slightly possible that just the fact that the too early meatball draft, like people look at it and like Mike Mager, like one of the best players out there, takes Noelvi Marte pretty high in that, and then he sucks the rest of the season. Like that might have slightly contributed to his ADP too. But like I look at like even in sort of a like 90th percentile outcome for Marte, like I think Jason Dominguez's 90th percentile outcome is even better, and he's going like 100 picks later or 80 picks later. So it's just like you're chasing that power and speed, but like Noelvi Marte isn't going to steal 35 bases. Like you're kind of hoping for like 25 homers, 18, 20 steals, something like that, which would be great if he does it. But there's other players that go later. Like I think Brenton Doyle I would rather have than Noelvi Marte. there's just, I mean, there's honestly like a handful of outfielders who go in the rounds after him. Like Joe Adell goes after him in some leagues. Like that's an easy call. So yeah, I'm not super like pound the table saying like don't draft Noelvi Marte, but I think he's just overpriced by a couple rounds.
Yeah, it's he has some pretty crazy reverse splits last year too, with a 55 WRC plus, 255 WOBA versus lefties versus a 119 WRC plus versus righties and a 348 WOBA. And him proving that he can handle righties, I guess, helps him too. But like you said, the defensive value kind of hurts him a little bit, and like you said, the last 2 months of the season when you just had a 28% K rate, I'm just wondering how the swing decisions, come back, because just like using Robert Orsiga metric, like a catch-all swing decision, he was 65th percentile in 2024, and last year he went down to 30th percentile, and it came a lot through being passive in the zone. So I wonder how that settles in, because I do think that's a real good marker to, when you hit the ball decently hard and you have some good contact skills like Marte, if you could just improve that a little bit, it just helps your overall quality. But yeah, I kind of agree with you as what you're saying. Like, I haven't drafted him, but I'm also not completely confident that me not drafting him is the right decision either. So I totally get that.
I was looking for like other options, because like I definitely could see Noelvi Marte having a great year and this looking stupid, but just for the way I would put together a DC roster, I just think he's a little mispriced right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, who's your next guy?
Last guy that I just don't like where he's going is Jackson Holliday of the Baltimore Orioles. And this is mostly a combination, pick 142 over the last 15 DCs. As high as 126. And I have nothing against Jackson Holliday, the baseball player. I think, he just turned 20. Like he just turned 22. He's still so young. I think we saw last year he had some flashes of what he might be able to do. I just think as the player, I don't know if the next step is this year. And I think if you're just banking on what he did last year, or even what he's projected for, 16 homers, 17 stolen bases, 250 average, there's just, like we mentioned before, the profile is so much available later on. You can get a guy like Otto Lopez 100 picks later. And then you have all these Gleyber Torres, Luis Garcia, Jorge Polanco, Marcus Semien, they have Brendan Donovan. There's so many capable second base guys that can come pretty close to either the home run stolen bases or the solid batting average. And I just, for that reason, I look at that price and I say he should be more toward where these players are than where he is at 142. So again, it's not really a knock on him. It is a little bit, because I don't know if there's a next step this year, but it's just the profile is so much available later on that it's too early for me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I went on Bench with Bubba yesterday and kind of said the same thing. Like, I think also just he's not guaranteed to lead off, and he's not guaranteed to play against lefties. And the more good players the Orioles bring in, the more likely it is that he doesn't hit in the top third of that order. And he has this big time prospect pedigree, and like I think people just associate that with like, well, one of these years it's going to click, and like I'm going to have my like lottery ticket, but you're not getting a major discount on him, and there isn't like that smoking gun under the hood of like, oh man, he's about to break out, like look out in 2026. Like it's kind of just like, he's a big time prospect. He's a pretty good hitter for his age, and like the power maybe just shows up. Like that's kind of what you're hoping on. But yeah, I just think it's the name value is doing a lot of the work. Maybe he's gonna like lead off in front of all these guys is probably doing some of the work there. But I haven't drafted Holliday.
Like you said, I think the versus lefty thing is very valid. Last year he batted 200 with a 62 WRC plus and a 572 versus lefty. He still started 75% of the time versus them, but I think you could definitely see, as you mentioned so perfectly, as they bring in better, like good players, and they have a guy like Jeremiah Jackson who might be able to cover versus a lefty. You just wonder if he can even match that total that he did last year. On the flip side, it's like if you're the Orioles, you probably want to develop him as much as you can versus a lefty. But at some point when you're winning games, you know, or you're trying to stay in a race, I think you have to make those decisions.
Right. I mean, they're choosing not to develop Kobe Mayo in the big leagues to start 2026, you know, so
boom. Perfect. Yeah, perfect. Right.
Okay, so Rob, I hope I don't offend you. With my last nomination here is Jonathan Aranda. I no slide on anything Aranda did in 2025. You know, he was a big time win where he was going last year. Right now, Aranda has a recent ADP of like 176 in these DCs. So he's the lowest drafted player that we'll discuss for these going too high players. And Rob might even disagree with me on Aranda. But I just think, I think there's a decent likelihood that like he sits against most lefties, even though there isn't like an obvious platoon partner for him on the roster per se. They have a few guys that they're going to want to sit against lefties, and they've only got a couple righty guys projected to make the roster. But it just strikes me that a team like Tampa Bay giving a player like Aranda full-time work at the bottom of the defensive spectrum, I don't really see it happening with him. I also look at, like, so Aranda has a career 307 slug against lefties, was a bit better last year. So like there is a chance that he's just getting better against lefties, and that they'd rather platoon the outfielders than platoon the first baseman. But I also look at like Alec Burleson going 2 rounds later, Sal Stewart going 4 rounds later. Like Aranda's not the last high average first baseman on the board. And I just think I think he's as likely, if not more likely, than Burleson and Stewart to sit against lefties. Also, obviously, getting the park downgrade, you know, was pretty lucky on balls in play last year. Very good hitter, very talented hitter. I just think he's going like 3 rounds too high.
Yeah, that's a good call. I know I don't take any offense to that. I love Jonathan Aranda. I think I have him on most of my DCs last season. And he was just really good for the draft cost for sure. And like you said, he did make gains versus lefties. Like I like also to look like the 111 WRC plus and 98 plate appearances. He only started 42% of the time versus lefties, according to Baseball HQ's in the forecaster. And yeah, I think that definitely a number that I think you can safe to say it will be the starting point next year. And like you said, if he is truly making gains versus lefties, maybe they give him more. They are going to have a host of outfielders to maximize through their spots as well. But I get it. Yeah, it's not I think something that I thought made sense ADP wise when it first started and we first got ADP, and I've been wanting him to be in that Burleson area as well, because I think that's where he belongs. It's just it's so funny because interest in using like that Babs like drafting. And you know, for anyone that doesn't know, Babs is something Ron Chandler developed. It was basically formed as a Mayberry method at Baseball HQ, and then he made it. And it's just snapshotting skills and similar skill sets in less of a projection form. And it's interesting to find him in a bucket with like Ivan Herrera, Tyler Soderstrom, and Vladimir Guerrero, and just like being, you know, okay in the power department, and also but having strong batting average qualities. And I think that's where Ronda can really help you. And he definitely, like, his numbers are definitely nothing to sneeze at. But yeah, I've had hard problem pressing the button at the 150 range. For me, it's just been a little tough, and I'm sad about that a little bit.
Yeah, and again, like we're done talking about the guys we think are going too high, but I think for most of these guys, like we're only kind of quibbling with about 25 to 30 spots of like ADP. Like, definitely not saying if you took any of these guys, it's like a bad pick and your team's doomed.
Right.
It's just more of like with the market this sharp, you have to just be splitting hairs about, like, I think this guy's going a round too early, this guy's going 2 rounds too early. Like, that's a big deal when the market's this tight. So
yep, totally agree.
All right, Rob, this is going to be more fun, I think, for you and I. Nothing more fun than just stacking that queue when you got about 8 rounds to go in the DC, and you're just like, man, I want all these guys. I've only got like 7 spots left, 6 spots left, 5 spots left. There's a bunch of guys I still want out there. So we're going to be talking about 5 players or so each that we really like in the final 5 rounds of a DC. And I made you go first last time. I'll go first this time.
Can I ask you a quick question though, James? Real quick about your overall like DC strategy. Does this player pool that you develop shape obviously how you're picking beforehand? Because there's nothing like getting to a guy in these rounds and be like, but I already have 11 outfielders, and do I need this guy? And I think you kind of have to foresee that and draft accordingly,
Yeah, no, absolutely. You have to, and you got to be kind of thinking about that in rounds like 30 through 40, 30 through 45, especially. Like, if I fill up this infield position, like at pick 34 or with my 34th pick or whatever, like that takes this player off the table for me later, who I think is like amazing value. Do I want to leave this DC with like 5 third basemen just because I think they're all awesome values? Like, I think you definitely, you don't want to be benching too many good hitters during the season.
Right.
I think you have to definitely, I think it's really helpful to figure out which positions you like late, right? And then
absolutely
apply that to sort of use as a tiebreaker for those picks you're making, like in the 30 through 40 round.
Yep, absolutely. Cool. Got it. Sorry, I didn't interrupt.
Yeah, the first player I want to bring up is a guy where I don't even think it's like a sexy breakout. I think it's more of just this position dries up so fast, and I think this guy is just the best of the late options, and it's Andruw Monasterio with the Brewers. And
you got me. I got to cross him off my list now, James. No, it's good.
Really?
I prepared more than 5, but nice one. Yeah, I love it. Go ahead. Take it away.
Okay. All right. Well, so basically, shortstop to me after pick 500 is just an utter wasteland of just terrible options. And like I'm assuming, like Emerson's off the board, Nasim Nunez is off the board. So we're talking about like the Jet Williams, Thomas Sajaci, Sebastian Walcott, Kiner Falefa, Kalen Culpepper, like this range of guys where there's a chance you just get absolutely nothing from the pick. And I think you want bodies, right? Like you want a guy where if you deal with bad injury luck at shortstop, you at least have a warm body you can plug in there who's going to provide some sort of value for you while you're shorthanded. And I think Monasterio defensively is very capable at shortstop. He's going to get starts. I think he starts at least once a week, basically, from the get-go. And I think Joey Ortiz is definitely a much better defensive shortstop. Like that's his bread and butter is the glove, but Ortiz can be streaky enough at the plate to where Monasterio maybe gets into sort of a 50-50 timeshare at times when Ortiz is slumping, and then he's playing every day if Ortiz is hurt. And Monasterio also, just from a skills standpoint, is kind of interesting. He had a 27.7% air pull percentage last year, a career high 110 max EV. So just, I think there's a chance that like if he was playing every day, like there would be a chance he could hit 20 homers. So you're definitely not getting 20 homers out of Monasterio, but like he has a little bit of pop in the bat. He's got the right plan of attack to maximize that pop. So it's more about how bad the position is and how he just kind of stands out to me in that crowd as like a usable piece.
Love it. Yeah, absolutely. When I first set up my leaderboards early in the season, and obviously due to my my famous name as the pull hitter. It's something I really like to do a lot of research on pull fly balls and pull barrels. And when you see the air pull percentage, when I did the improvements from year to year, I was like, oof. And then diving into him, just really saw like an opportunity to take a shot on a guy like 99th percentile sweet spot. And it didn't come with bat speed, but just more of getting to better angles to the ball. His ideal attack angle was as high as of his career. And I think the biggest thing, James, is this. For me, when I look at the depth charts and kind of find these guys, like you said, those late shortstops are gross. I just see like their second baseman, third baseman, shortstop were completely healthy last year. And Turang, Durbin, and Ortiz, they all got over 500 plate appearances. And if any of them does miss time this year, if you want to play that game, like someone's due for an injury here, Monasterio can pop in and be a solid add to the team. I got him on a couple teams so far, and I love that call.
Yeah, I ended up reaching for him ahead of the final 5 rounds in my current DC just because a friend of the pod did the same in my second DC and I didn't get him. So
there you go.
But I'm chasing him up the board, but hopefully you can still kind of get him at least after round 40, I would think.
Yeah, love it. All
right, who you want to go with?
Oh, I think I'm gonna start with my favorite target, late round spec source, and his name is Hunter Harvey, still a free agent, and last year, was a little bit snake bitten by the injury bug. Didn't throw a ton of innings, but even in his 10 innings, he showed his usual, 20+% K minus walk, heavy swing and miss. And, from 2023 to 2024, he was 20th overall in saves plus holds with 58. And that includes eighth in holds overall. So his ability to pitch in high leverage is there. His last 160 innings, he has a 307 ERA, 109 whip, 21% K minus walk, 308 Sierra. He's got great control, gets chase. His zone miss rate is really good. On his 4-seamers, 23.5. The league average is 18. I mean, his career 2 versus lefties, he handles lefties very well. So, as I look at across some of the free agents that are still left to be signed that can close out games, and some teams that I think can still use, if not a clear closer, like I don't think he's going to be that guy that like we want him to be our closer, but I think he's very able to be someone who competes in a pen that's just maybe a little bit unsettled, like just say the Texas Rangers or the San Francisco Giants. I still think there's opportunity for him there, and I think that he's shown that he can absolutely handle it. And he also has a very wide arsenal. And I know this sounds crazy because of the injury history, but he can be one of these guys that a team might get crazy and try to develop into a starter because he just has a really wide, good arsenal, and he can use it to both lefties and righties. So I don't prefer him in that role, but I'm just saying I think there's a path there if some team wants to explore. But I think he can be in the back end of a bullpen picking up 10 saves like he did with Washington in 2023. And that's what I hope for him and as I continue to draft him. And I've been bumping him up in path to 40, like earlier than 45 to 50 because I just love him and I want him.
I love it. I've been a big Harvey fan for a while. I mean, dating back to when he was a starting pitching prospect with the Orioles. Like, I mean, he was one of the absolute blue chip starting pitching prospects way back in the day. When I first started doing this. And I remember I just always assumed he was going to be the Nationals closer of the future. Just didn't really work out that way. Like, injuries have kind of always sort of been swirling around him and limiting his workload here and there, but I absolutely love the call out. And, there's enough unsettled bullpens out there and few enough legit closers still on the market that, who knows, like there's a few spots where he could sign and all of a sudden he's going 15 rounds earlier.
Yeah, Arizona, is another team that has a lot of uncertainty, and even the Nationals, I mean, getting rid of Ferrer, and he can reunion with them would be pretty interesting. So there's some spots you can go to for sure.
And the Athletics, like they spent money last year on the bullpen. They might do it again. Okay, my next call here is probably my favorite of these. Well, maybe not. Actually, I'm gonna go with a pitcher here. My favorite pitcher of these call-outs is Carmen Mlodzinski of the Pirates. He's going the highest of the guys I'm going to shout out. He's going kind of in like the 46th round on average recently, so he barely qualifies. But Mlodzinski was a starting pitching prospect, but he was working as a reliever for the Pirates of late. But starting in July last year, he adds the curveball to his mix and expands his mix from 4 to 5. So he's throwing 2 fastballs, splitter, slider, curve, and he's working 2+ innings in most of his starts most of his appearances from July on. And in that span, he has a 1.89 ERA, a 2 FIP, a 2.64 xFIP, a 22.6 K- walk, 56% ground ball rate, 0.99 WHIP in 47 2/3 innings for Mlodzinski. And like he doesn't need to get stretched out or get any saves for him to just be a screaming value if he just reprises his role from last year. But I would stretch him out. I think he's got number 3 starter upside like as early as this year. Like he just didn't show any real weaknesses down the stretch last year. So lots of possibilities from Mlodzinski. I know the Pirates have just a ton of starting pitching depth that I love, but I just think Mlodzinski, the skills were just so dominant, and over a large enough sample, I just think there's a lot of ways this could pay off.
Yeah, love that call. Got a Mlodzinski already, and I think if you even trying to, project a little bit of a midseason Dennis Santana trade, as I think we all, trying to look at those situations for draft champions, and behind it, I just don't see like Isaac Matson or Justin Lawrence or Gregory Soto, and they got rid of Colin Holderman, who was always supposed to be like kind of like that next guy. Mlodzinski, like you said, was really awesome down the stretch and can put up good reliever numbers. And I think that's honestly, James, there's so many of these kind of guys that go in this part of the draft is even if you don't project a whole bunch of saves or any, they're just useful pitcher number 9s that you could throw into your lineup in a long DC season. It's going to be some points where if you're fighting for ratios and you don't want to throw in a 2-start of, Kyle Gibson out there, those kind of things, the decisions you'll have to make down the road become a lot easier when you could plug in a good reliever who won't mess things up for you.
Yeah. And since you listed some guys in that bullpen, I'll throw out like, if we did like 70 round or 60 round drafting holes, I would have a ton of Kyle Nicholas, but
oh yeah. Stuff monster, like just ball percentage wise is a fix away from being a very, very viable, trust me, because he was the guy that I wrote down in the beginning of the season with Mlodzinski as, if they don't make any moves, these 2 guys are possible guys. But I want to like safer in that, like you said, if you have to plug in Mlodzinski, you could, I think, trust a little bit that the ratios won't get completely destroyed.
All right, who's your next guy?
So this might be a little bit of a crazy one given how his season ended, but I think when you just look at the lens of how deep Michael Conforto is going in drafts, it's just pretty interesting to me. Like he's, he hasn't gone over 488 plate appearances in his last 4, healthy seasons since 2020, but in those seasons, I think he has a homer per plate appearance that is just good enough. But again, in these late DCs where you're just trying to strike gold and a guy that you could throw in Friday to Sunday when some outfielders are down, I think Conforto can still be viable. I know he's still without a team. And last year, I think the memory of him on the Dodgers was very dimmed, considering came from a good 112 WRC plus with the Giants, where he kind of came back from the shoulder injury a little stronger in his second season, but there's still a 10% barrel rate here from even last year in his first career. The K rate's still, manageable, 25%. And it's crazy because he's been pretty awful versus lefties his whole career, but his last 2 seasons have been actually very strong. And I think a lot of people just see him as a strong sider, but his numbers last year versus lefties were, and I know it's small sample, but over the last 2 seasons, it's about 200 plate appearances of him being, pretty good. So, still got strong EV90s. He still makes very strong swing decisions. So again, it's not a sexy pick. It's not a prospect pick that can erupt, but I think it's a guy that you could pop into your lineup, especially if he goes to a team that just kind of is a cheap sign and they just throw him out there and he plays a bunch. I don't think you can go very wrong with filling out your outfield with Michael Conforto.
Yeah, no, I like that call a lot. I have no idea why do people like Max Kepler in the mid 30 rounds and Michael Conforto's an in-game.
I know, right? It'd be different if Kepler had a team, but they both don't. So I know the uncertainty there. And it's just funny because I think, as you mentioned earlier, once you start getting ADP, it's a lot of guys stick around to where they've been, so right. If you just got taken at 600 and 700 in the first 5, it's not going to be so much that change guys, obviously news and roles change, but for someone like him, he just might be buried here for a nice cheap ad.
All right. So this is probably my favorite call out, and it's going to be Graham Pauley, third baseman with the Marlins. He's been going, 677 basically on average. So he's getting drafted in most drafts, but he's getting drafted in the final couple rounds in most drafts. And I think he's going to be the Marlins starting third baseman. I think he is one of their best defenders, and I think they really value strong defense. And I also am very encouraged by what Pauley did at the plate to close last year. He was really good at AAA, and he was still just 24 years old. He had a 127 WRC plus at AAA, strikeout rate below 12% at AAA, 8 homers, 5 steals in 37 games. And his big league numbers don't look that great on the surface. He did have a 246 BABIP, but he had as many walks as Ks and a 126 WRC plus over his final 100 plate appearances. So he was a legitimate starting caliber third baseman for the Marlins over the last month. And they've just been signaling that they don't like Connor Norby at third. I think it's I don't know why Roster Resource thinks it'd be Pauley at first and Norby at third. That doesn't make any sense to me. I think Pauley, maybe he sits against lefties, but he's just going so late. I think I think he could go 15 homers, 15 steals, maybe 16 homers, 12 steals, something like that.
I love that.
It's exciting, man. I'm into Graham Pauley.
Yeah, it's funny because there's always that fantasy burn, and I had a lot of Pauley last year, and it didn't materialize to what I thought it was going to be, but like you said, he still performed well in the minors, especially with WRC plus wise. And like you mentioned, the last 2 months of the season, he closed it out really well. And when I saw that, I was trying to find something to see where that change should come from. And he actually got batting stance, which is cool. You could break down the batting stance leaderboard on Savant, and you could break it down into month. And he got closer to the pitcher. He got closer to the plate by a significant amount, inch and a half from the beginning of the season. He had a wider stance with his feet. From the beginning of the season to the end, there was about a 5-inch difference, and he closed off his stance a little bit. He was in about 15 to 18 degrees open. He ended the season 8 degrees open, and it led to better less pop-ups, and over on the batted ball pile, again, you could do it by monthly, and it just seemed to me that he had a better bat path to the ball. He had a lot more line drives. So it's interesting when a guy makes a change like that, and we have these tools, and sometimes I don't know how much to weight them, right? Like, is this real? Is this going to stay? Or is this just an experiment? But sometimes you have to look at those kind of changes, and we have to use the projection in our head. It's like, maybe this is a real change, and he looked better when he did that. So I like that call. Like, yeah, that's interesting, how that, infield, I think, evolves, right? Because I think Wagaman showed enough that he could still get some run, and he projects very well too. And then you have like this Christopher Morel thing. I don't believe at all that he's going to play first base. It just doesn't seem like the route they're going to take to first base. So yeah, I think between first and third being in flux a little bit, that Pauley has a nice little shot there to getting some more PT than he's being projected for.
Absolutely. We've each got, or no, how many do you got left?
I did Hunter, Harvey, and Conforto so far.
So you got 3 left. All right. Who you want to go with?
I'm going to go Sean Newcomb.
Whoa.
Who's a free agent. Is a free agent. And again, a lot of these, this is kind of in the mold of like the Mlodzinski thing. There's so many guys like this. Like, I throw out like even Dietrich Enns to someone I thought, like,
I love
I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to throw all these kind of guys out. It's just these boring like pitchers that you could throw in. But Newcomb, he started off as a starter with the Red Sox, and he had a 5.7% K rate, 15% came on its walk, 403 SIERA in those 5 starts. He had a 4.77 BABIP, which led to like an unsightly whip that I think was hard for him to bring down as the season went along. But he's got good fastball breaking ball combo. He limits barrels with his good angles. Got good ground ball profile. And then as a reliever, he had a 2.19 ERA, a 1.17 whip, 15% came on its walk, and showed that he could pitch in high leverage. I think he's like Nick Martinez light. And if you want to look at some guy who could pop in as a starter, I think some team will take a chance on him again as a starter. But we've seen that he can be good in the pen and help your ratios too, if that's the case for him. So again, not a sexy pick, but as I'm filling out my team with pitchers, sometimes I vie for this profile instead of like my 17th starter. That's going to be hard to project.
Yeah, I mean, Newcomb, just big lefty with stuff. Like, teams are never going to give up on that.
Right.
So, I mean, you could just see by like his performance, but just how many opportunities he's gotten over the years. Yeah, I like that call. And would you be hoping that he signs with like a good team as a reliever, a bad team as a reliever? Like, do you not care? You just think he's going to be fine no matter what?
I hope he signs with like someone with that eye, like the analytical eye to take advantage of his abilities. Like some of these, like, I mean, the Red Sox was a nice team for him to, I think, start off the season with last year, and I think he took some things with them. But yeah, I hope he signs with a good team that is in the forefront of like the analytic world and can maximize his ability.
All right, so I don't think I surprised you with any of my first 3. I don't think I'll surprise you with my last one, so I'll try to surprise you with this one.
Okay.
All right. Nathan Church, outfielder.
Oh!
How about that?
I love it. Go ahead.
All right. So Nathan Church, lefty hitting outfielder with the Cardinals. I think there's going to be some roster turnover still on this roster before opening day. Church is a good defensive outfielder. He can play all 3 spots. He's got a good arm and right. He's got the glove for center. He's not like a Victor Scott level defender in center, but I think he's a better hitter than Victor Scott. Now Church, he's got a bit of a ground ball problem, at least in the very upper levels, but strikeout rate below 10% last year with 13 homers and 16 steals in 86 games in the minors. So just love the contact rate combined with the defense and just the depth chart. I just think there's going to be like 200 plus plate appearances there. I'm not expecting him to hit double-digit homers, even in a best-case scenario. Like, it might be like he probably, if he ever gets to double-digit homer power, it's probably in his mid to late 20s. But I could see 15 steals and maybe 4 months of like a strong side platoon role with the Cardinals. So as your last outfielder in the 50th round, sign me up for Nathan Church.
All right, I like that, and I think that's just such a sharp move to take advantage of the known expected turmoil and churn of a roster from a team, and I think that's very valid to use that to speculate on these guys at the end of the season to get them time, maybe like you said, from June on, or to start the season if they move on from Newpar and Gorman and Donovan. There's a lot of chance for him to slide in there. Just got to worry about Jordan Walker standing in his way. joking, everybody, joking.
What's funny is like one of the very first trade that happened in my favorite dynasty league this offseason was a team trying to buy low on Jordan Walker.
Yeah, I mean, I heard the discussion with Rob on it, and it makes so much sense of the good things and the bad things for him, and you just have to figure out if he can overcome that. And I just think that some people excel in the application and some people fail in that. And it's great if you train to help yourself, but how are you going to carry it into the games? And he's always seemed like a guy within the news as, oh yeah, they told me this and I'm trying this, and it just never worked. So I'm just hoping the driveline stuff could stick to him. That would be good, for him.
All right, Rob, get 2 more.
So a lot of times, when I'm getting to these, later round, James, I have my leaderboard and I just sort by barrels, bat speed, or whatever it is, just to look for some exciting, juice there. And I still see Zach Dezenzo in my mind as someone, that's like, he can't escape me. And I think first, obviously, it comes down to the team, and their depth chart. And, I think we've seen Jordan.
Worst depth chart in the league in terms of being annoying right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so much. There could be so much movement there. We heard Jake Myers in the news, and that I think that obviously helps Melton and Dezenzo gaining some PT. I mean, Jesus Sanchez went to the Astros and had like one of the worst stretches of his career. I don't expect that to continue, but I also feel like they don't have anything they owe to Jesus Sanchez as well. Senzo is just like, there's a small sample of him in the majors, but it's still, it's 174 plate appearances, a 14% barrel rate, and that's just at the 101 batted ball event, and that's just something I like. 73 mile an hour bat speed, 90th percentile sweet spot. He's got good speed, 75th percentile sprint speed, and Steamer has him. Steamer 600 at 18-7. Just like Seager wise, swing decision wise, he's just super passive when he's got a chance in the majors. And again, something that just maybe with some settled time and a better head and just have a better approach at the plate. But I still see a lot of goodness here in the profile. It's just how the depth chart shakes up. So if you're unsure of it, you probably want to stay away from it. But if you see some paths here for him to step in and be a part of the team, then I think it's a good place to go.
I just really wish Dana Brown knew how to organize a big league roster, because I just don't think there's any evidence that he knows how to do that. And
that's for sure.
What are you doing, man?
I have no idea.
These guys need to play. These guys got to play.
Yeah.
I would want to trade with the Astros. I'd be trying to get some of their guys, like whoever it is, like whoever they want to get rid of, like they got to get rid of some of those guys.
Yeah, because when you mentioned like later round picks that we love, like immediately I thought of Melton, but then that's why I asked you what pick after what pick, and then I was like, okay, I take him off the list because obviously he's going a lot higher. But I love Melton for that reason too.
Oh yeah, I've got a Melton share.
Super good.
Like him. Okay, so my last call. Like I could easily just throw out Tanner McDougal of the White Sox, but I've written about him as a DC target. I love Tanner McDougal. I think he is still going in the final 5 rounds. I think he's like a layup if he's going there. I think he's the White Sox most likely pitching prospect to make waves in 2026. However, Hagen Smith is also available even later than McDougal. And I think Hagen Smith is more likely to kind of stick in this final 5 round range. And it's very easy to just point to his control and say, like, why would you take this guy? But like, if you asked some of the smartest scouts out there, like this time last year, like, what do you foresee for Jacob Mizorowski's 2025? Like, they would have said a lot of the same stuff that people would say about Hagen Smith's 2026. Like, just this guy's a reliever. Like, if he gets in, he's going to be like, they're going to break him in out of the bullpen. Maybe next year he'll be a starter, that type of thing. And Hagen Smith, like, he's always missed bats. Slight improvement with the control in the Arizona Fall League. But I think the White Sox have a better idea of what they're doing than they really ever have in the past, like 5-6 years. And you don't have to go back that far to like Hagen Smith and Chase Burns being compared to each other in the draft. One of them's going around pick 100. One of them is free at the end of DCs. I just think it's a nice talent gamble on a guy that the White Sox are going to be very committed to trying to develop in 2026.
I like that. That's a nice call out there. I feel like they have a lot of interesting guys, like, late to kind of speculate on. It's and I love like kind of the Shane Smith, Sean Burke guys too, just because of the changes they've made and the step they've made forward. So it's really important to pay attention to that organizational shifts, right? Because there's so much value in that. And I know, our good buddy Rob, would be like, well, how do we know, this new hitting coach will influence them? But I think we could do our best in at least anticipating there might be some change in an organization. So a call out there.
All right, take us home, Rob. One more guy.
Yeah, so this is interesting because I had a tough time figuring out who exactly I wanted to mention here, because I have I wrote down so many guys because I know we're very in lockstep with our brains a lot, and I just wanted to all right, I got to make sure I have some guys backed up and ready to go. So I have 2 guys I want to throw out because I think they're just going off Steamer 600 and possible opportunities. But the first one is Everson Pereira for the Chicago White Sox. I think there's like a possible chance that, just given that he has no options. I know they signed like Derek Hill at the end of last season. I know, they still got Brooks Baldwin, Benintendi, and Luis Robert, but I think Luis Robert is going to be on the move. And I just kind of forecast a little bit of a Mike Tauchman role for Pereira, where he just plays versus all the righties and maybe even some lefties. His Steamer 600 is 22 homers, 10 stolen bases. I think like what we've seen from him so far in the majors isn't, special per se, but he's going to be 25 in April. He over a 91 batted ball advantage, an 8% barrel, 50% hard hit, and the EV90 is strong. The swing decisions were really good in the minors last year. So, I mean, just playing time wise, he might be able to slot into a decent chunk of PT in center field. And late, I'll take a shot when someone had that kind of Steamer 600 ejection, and someone's pretty similar to. Okay, sorry, do you want to comment?
Just really quick. I just wanted to look up. Yeah, so I mean, like, even just compare Pereira's like approach, like all of his hit tool related metrics at AAA to what Colson Montgomery's were last year, and then like look at what Montgomery did in the big leagues for the White Sox. Like it's like I love like you couldn't ask for a better team fit for Pereira to like actually get a shot this year.
100%. And I think, like I said, like when you really go through the depth charts and you're seeing the like the no options left, and they could probably use another outfielder on this team for the whole season. I think those are the things that also like draw you in more. But yeah, I mean, he did really have some strong EV90s and strong barrel rates in the minors as well. So I see there's a lot to like for him in these late rounds. And also in the same vein, Oswald Peraza for the Angels, because I just don't think they're going to have a settled infield through the whole season. And I think when you saw him come over from the Yankees, another guy, no options left, I think he has an ability to, pop in at second. You saw him play first last year when he had to. He could play third and short, and hasn't really, showed what I think we wanted him to be. But he's still only 25 years old. Pretty solid, 6% barrel rate for his career. And like the steamer 600 of 17 and 18 is just all very. The Angels are an aggressive team on the base path, so I don't know. I just he seems to me a guy that you could pluck really late just to try to get some speed, for a decent stretch in your lineup.
Yeah, love both those call outs, and just two guys that were definitely former top 50 RotoWire prospects.
Yeah.
And I think Pereira probably top 25 overall prospect at his peak. So like I like when these kind of mid-tier prospects for these blue chip orgs kind of wash out and then end up on these second division teams, and then they just don't really have as much. I mean, there's pressure when you're out of options and you might get TFA'd, but like, you're not, it's not the same thing as like trying to perform for the Yankees or, the Dodgers have traded away a bunch of these guys in the past too. So yeah, love both those call outs.
I'm going to give you one more, James, because I just thought of this last night. I was looking at I was thinking about things, and can Andrew Susac, recently drafted in the Rule 5, can he be the next Blake Sable for draft champions? Where I'm just
sicko, man, get the hell out of here.
I know. Listen, these are the things I ask myself. Sorry, I go deep.
You and your number 4 DC catchers.
Hey,
it's like, hey man, I plugged this guy in for like 2 weeks and he got me like, yeah.
He got me 3 hits. He was huge.
All right, man. Well, what do you got to let the people know about where they can follow along with all the great pull hitter magic?
Yeah, so come check me out on the Patreon. If you go to patreon.com, put Pull Hitter Fantasy into the search bar, it'll come up. You can get a free week trial to come check out with. I'm producing weekly, and you get the additional launch angle pod that me and Rob Silver do, the one that you guest appeared on as well. That was over on the Patreon side. So every other launch angle pod goes over to my Patreon, and they're trying out some new stuff this year with some AI transcripts of my pods and trying to train it to, provide some good write-ups as well, because I love talking and, I don't like writing as much. So I'm trying to converge those so people have audio and notes as well. And on Twitter is at Dead Pull Hitter. But yeah, Pull Hitter podcast. We're doing some positional previews right now with Dusty Wagner. We've hit several positions. We have third base, outfield, pitcher left. Doing some divisional previews with Randy Haynes. And it's mostly geared in this vein, right? We're just trying to look at ADP depth charts and trying to find angles of guys that can be useful in fantasy this season, because I think we're also good at the top of drafts, James, right? And I think you just make that edge from really looking at the depth charts, really looking at opportunity and skill sets, and finding that as the actionable guys, right? Because I think we can all draft a good first 10, 15 round team. It's just after that, how do you separate from the crowd? So that's what we geared to it over at the Pull Hitter.
Very good stuff, man. For my listeners, no pod next week, taking that off, but like I said, I went on Bench with Bubba yesterday, so check that out. I'm going on Tool Shed Pod with Eric Cross tonight, so check that out. And then also got a Christmas present for everyone next week, a surprise update to the Dynasty rankings just before Christmas for you. So YouTube 15 if you want to get 15% off and check out those Dynasty rankings. And, of course, all the top 400 update, FIPD stuff after the new year. And my thanks to Rob DiPietro. So stay safe, everyone, and happy holidays.
Cheers.